What happened to Sonic CGI? Before I get into what I mean by that, I want to give you guys some context. Sonic CGI has had an exceptionally good reputation in the video game industry. For the past 19 years, it's been able to rival the likes of Pixar, especially with the objective best of them all, the Sonic Unleashed opening cutscene. I'm not going to explain why this cutscene works. There are so many videos and segments of other videos that go into detail as to why this entire scene is so Sonic. This isn't exactly where Sonic CGI started to get good, but this is definitely the moment where most Sonic fans really started to pay attention. They continued to use CGI throughout the early 2010 Sonic games, but there was a noticeable difference as to how much of it they were actually using in-game. It started with Sonic Colors having about 2 full cutscenes using CGI and the rest being pre-rendered in-game. Sonic Generations didn't have any, only using CGI for marketing purposes. They also had an opening as well, but there was a very big chance that most players probably haven't even seen this in the game though, seeing as though you have to wait about 20-ish seconds for something to actually happen. Sonic Lost World's first cutscene was entirely CGI as well as certain shots during in-game cutscenes. However, they didn't make as much material for the marketing. They mainly just spliced up one massive thing that didn't really do much in terms of actual advertising. At this point, Sonic fans were noticing that we weren't getting as much CGI as we used to. However, it was very noticeable that at the time, most of these games that were getting released were budget titles. Black Knight, Secret Rings, to a lesser extent Sonic Colors, and now Lost World. These games barely had any CGI compared to the likes of Shadow the Hedgehog or even Sonic 06. All of these more recent games were budget titles, and the ones that weren't, like Sonic Generations, didn't even have any CGI either. I'm not even going to go through the effort to look at the Sonic Boom series because we all know how that series turned out. Sega put so much money into that series that when it actually did fail, they had to restructure the entire company in 2015. Sonic Mania also came and went without any CGI, instead trading it off for beautiful animated 2D content from the legend himself, Tyson Hesse. But 2017 also got another Sonic game, Sonic Forces. For the sake of time, I'm going to quickly go over this, but Sonic Forces also came and went with no CGI in-game. All of the CGI was used for the marketing, and whoo boy was this false advertising. So at this point, Sonic fans had almost gave up hope in terms of CGI being in Sonic games, but then Team Sonic Racing came with a CGI opening 2 years later. Yeah, we were a little desperate. 2 more Sonic games came and went without anything new on the CGI front. Colors Ultimate just reused stuff from the original Colors but upscaled it to make it look even more beautiful. And Origins just came and went with another batch of 2D cutscenes from Powerhouse Animation. With all of that context out of the way, I want to ask the question again. What happened to Sonic CGI? I want to look at the past 2 years of Sonic games to see how their CGI has been used in the marketing and the actual games themselves. Because Sega could have potentially changed their tune on Sonic CGI because of the success of the first and second and the now upcoming third movie. It's no secret that for the past decade or so, Sonic CGI has left much to be desired. However, Sega did step up their game with Sonic Frontiers. Oh, with the in-game CGI? No, of course not. But they sure did make a lot of CGI for the marketing. They were showing new CGI from as far back as spring 2021 going all the way into fall of 2022. In fact, they made even more for the Final Horizon update in fall of 2023. That's more than 2 full years worth of Sonic CGI only used for marketing, and trust me, it's a lot. Almost 4 minutes of CGI was made throughout the entire game's lifespan, however, none of it made it into the actual game itself. This, while being teased before, was a sign of things to come. Sonic Superstars, while being a very controversial game, in terms of our topic, had a really interesting marketing campaign. Being a classic Sonic game, you'd figure that all of the marketing that wasn't using actual footage from the game itself would be 2D cutscenes. That's what Origins and Mania had, so why not just do it here? Well, they did make an animated short along the lines of what Colors Ultimate and Frontiers had, but they also had CGI animations as well, that were literally only used in 2 trailers. No, I am not joking. One that only used the characters running around, and the other being a fully rendered scene of all of the characters in action. Funny enough, it doesn't look too different from the actual game, which, if you can believe it or not, is another sign of things to come. Oh wait, yeah, Sonic Origins Plus. Maybe they add some new cutscenes for that game, and yeah, no, of course they didn't. It's Sonic Origins Plus. What did you expect? There was nothing new for Sonic Origins Plus. In fact, I didn't even mention it in the script because there was nothing there. But they literally didn't do anything. I assume the reason for that is because Amy was already in all of those cutscenes, but I don't know. Sorry for going on a little bit of a tangent there, but we didn't really get much else for Sonic Superstars, so let's just move on to the next game. The new upcoming Sonic game for 2024, Sonic X Shadow Generations. As of recording this, it's been a couple couple of weeks since we've got the Doom Powers trailer for Sonic CGI Generations, and it's gotten me thinking. Where's the CGI? The last time that we saw some was for the announcement trailer, and even then, all that ended up being was only 10 more new seconds added on to already existing footage. And that already existing footage? Yeah, it's from the original Sonic Generations, which came out 13 years ago, all the way back in 2011. Then while I was thinking about it some more, I also realized that Sonic Team has massively stepped up their game in terms of animation. This could even be seen in the first trailer too. Is it possible that Sega approved the plan of putting more budget into the animation department of the actual game versus wasting it on something that will be very underutilized like CGI? I genuinely think that this move was made for the better because, well, just take a look at the footage. It clearly seems to have paid off. Everyone has been praising the animation that we've seen from this game, and I'm no different. This game looks really good for Sonic Team standards. It's a massive step up from Sonic Frontiers, and that game released less than 2 years ago. Also, the animations in here seem a lot more fluid than the ones we've been getting in the CGI. I know that some of you are probably gasping at your screen right now, so just let me explain. I'm not referring to the Sonic Unleashed opening, or really any CGI cutscene from that game. That is the golden standard for Sonic animation, so I'm not even going to touch that. I'm referring to the more recent games I talked about, such as Frontiers and Superstars. I brought this up earlier, but the animations are getting to the point where they don't really have to rely on CGI to make the game look good. The counterexample of this, however, is Sonic Frontiers. In a lot of the trailers, have got new CGI in place of gameplay. Even up until 5 days before the game released, we still got a large amount of CGI. While the game has stiff and boring animations in Frontiers, the actual CGI wasn't the best animation either. Well, yes, it was still extremely expressive and fluid compared to the main game, but there wasn't much of an attempt to make anything really stand out. No attempt to make any dynamic shots of the characters. It was honestly just boring. I mean, there were attempts, but we've seen them do so much better. Looking over at Sonic Superstars, however, it's a middle ground. They didn't really need to cover up the gameplay because most of the time it looks the same. You're either running, jumping, or using the Chaos Emerald powers. Those animations look really good, so you might as well use them in the trailers, because heaven knows they didn't really have much else to show. So they barely used the CGI, and what they did use was subpar. It's obviously still good, but they could have done more than just limiting themselves to a 2D perspective. It would have been really interesting to see one of the environments that they made from a different angle. Going back to Sonic CGI Generations, that game's animation looks amazing. However, I've said my piece about that before, so let's get into the CGI. Like I also said, it's quite literally about 10 seconds of new content that we haven't seen since January. It starts off with Shadow interrupting the original footage in a really stiff looking transition, not just for Sonic, but for all of the characters in that shot, just snapping into a new pose. Then the two Sonics land on the ground and turn back to look at Shadow, which we then get a zoom in into Shadow looking back at them. Then we get another zoom in into his eye, it glows, and then that's it. We get 4 shots throughout that entire thing. All of them are just static shots, which the latter half each transitioning into the other with a zoom. Compare that to our first look at the Doom Rush. Alright, now try to keep up because this one goes really quickly. First off, Shadow's face is surrounded in darkness as one of his eyes glows red. He then leaps towards the camera ready to strike, which he then proceeds to punch and kick the camera 7 times. He then winds up for one last kick, and it's hard to tell, but this kick sends the camera upwards with the Doom energy as well. It then makes a cut in the footage to a new angle, which makes me think we haven't really seen the full animation yet. Regardless, all of the Doom energy violently spreads out and fades away, leading into a zoom in of Shadow in a dynamic pose surrounded what I would assume is smoke and some red lightning. The animation communicates so much more than what they tried to do with the CGI, and I think they know this. Like I said earlier, the clip that we got in January had been our only piece of CGI. Even while writing the script, we are exactly 2 months away from the release of the game and we haven't gotten anything. And unless they put something in the launch trailer like they did for Frontiers, then I don't see us getting any more CGI. So I'll ask one final time, what happened to Sonic CGI? I'll tell you what happened. After years of Sega putting all of their money on making the games look as cinematic as possible, they eventually started backtracking and making the best material for the games exclusive to the marketing. They did this throughout the 2010s and the early 2020s when it peaked with Sonic Frontiers having almost 4 minutes of CGI made for it, but nowhere to be seen in the actual game itself. However, more recently, Sega has been making an effort to make the games look better in terms of animation so that they don't have to rely on CGI, barely using any in the 2 most recent titles. We are truly in a renaissance for the animation in Sonic games, and I hope that the lack of CGI, while not permanent, allows the games to have more of an identity of their own. That is what happened to Sonic CGI. It's still a little early to tell if this is going to be better for the series, however. But one thing that I can guarantee is, We are never getting another CGI opening cutscene. It's been 11 years. They are never coming back.